superstar. He is an absolute superstar, Tom Mitchell.
Cripps at the back. Cripps is too good.
Nil, yes! Oh, how good was that?
BJ, talk to us about life on the fringe of an AFL player and how tough that is.
Yeah, well, Tommy, I think we'd both know it, right? We'd both have been there. And at the same time as well at the Swans, I think we had that experience where every week, and you would have seen, like every week you go into the team announcement. I remember Thursday mornings at the Swans before a T2 session, we'd have team announcement and you'd go in if you're like a fringe player or an emergency maybe, and Horse would pull out the whiteboard. And I'd never look at the team on the board ever. I'd always go straight to the left-hand side where they had only 8 magnets lined up.
And you'd try and figure out which configuration they were going with. Is it all the players on the left? Is it the top 4?
Yeah, Horse would do some, Horse or Stewie Jew would do like some rogue kind of combinations. So sometimes it was 2 columns and the right column was the replacement for the left column if they pulled out. Sometimes it was 2 horizontal rows. And I became an expert at reading that, I reckon.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff it was like. It was always waiting to see your name. It was always wanting to see your name or feeling like questioning, have I done enough this week? And it's bloody tough. It's an existence that I don't think anyone ever expects to have that footy career. I think you grow up and you think, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be a star, play 300 games. And the reality is you get to a club and there are players like that, but those players kind of exist because there's fringe players who are in and out of the team.
Yeah. And
at every footy club, I reckon there'd be 5 or 6 of those guys who never really find a home. And I can kind of tell watching a team play, you can always get an instinct of who they are. And you can see their body language and you go, I used to be like that.
Yeah.
If I got subbed off, I'd be filthy and I'd have my head down a bit because you know that you've missed a quarter of footy at the end and you wanted to get a few more touches because you know those help you get the game the next week. So it's a stressful time, man. Those years at the Swans, I was stressed.
You summarised it pretty well because we spoke on the phone prior to this just to have a chat about the podcast, and I feel sick thinking about that anxiety that we both felt and a lot of players feel being in those positions where you're walking into the building every day and it's actually, you look back, it's not a very healthy way to live, especially with sort of how things were run at a pretty, they were pretty ruthless some things at the footy club.
You're 18 when you first get exposed to it. I look at myself, I played for the Swans when I was 18 to 23. I was a baby. I was like, not excusing anything I did, but I was a fucking baby, man. Like the emotional maturity just wasn't there to deal with things. And I think, we spent a lot of time together in those years, Tommy. And there was an outlet we had through whether it be drinking or partying or just wanting to be around the guys because you've had a shit week, you're not getting picked in the team. And at points it kind of became a bit of a fuck you to the footy club, right? Like I remember if I'd been dropped and I'd be playing for the Rezzies, we'd have to go watch a senior team play. And I'd be sitting in the box we had. And if I didn't have an appearance for after the game, I'd leave at halftime. I'd just sneak out at halftime, go home, start drinking, and then be like, El Topo. Like, who's coming to El Topo? We'd always go to fucking El Topo. But yeah, maybe that was me feeling like I could take control of my life a bit by putting things on my terms. But like you said, it's a pretty destructive and toxic way to live. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
But again, nothing prepares you for it.
No, there's nothing quite like it, is there? And you spoke about as well how those group of players, you wanted to feel connected in some way. And I guess you had your own troubles away from footy with not having as much family support and you didn't speak to your parents for a long period of time. But how difficult was that as well, navigating through that period of not talking to your family for 7 or 8 years and you're dealing with the pressures of work and trying to kickstart a career?
Yeah, Tommy, I think end of 2015, I got dropped before, I think we played a final against North Melbourne and I got dropped for Jimmy Rose, who's one of my great friends actually, which is quite funny. Yeah. I think I still talk to him about it. I'm like, you fucking ruined my career.
Stole my spot.
But that was a really low point for me because after that point, I didn't play. I played one more game over my final 2 years at the Swans and I kind of gave up a bit at that point. I still trained really hard, but I disengaged a lot from the club. I didn't have, at the same time, I then also became estranged from my parents. And I was at a point in my life where I was resenting football because it was hurting me more than I'd ever anticipated it would. And for me, that came out as me blaming my parents. Grew up in a footy household. Dad was a Australian rugby league fullback. Kieran, ended up captaining the Swans when I was there and had an all-Australian career as well. I felt like I just always had to be a footy player. And it was not like mum and dad would set up cones in the backyard and make us run around it. It was just, I'd always felt like I just had to be in that family. I just had to be a footy player.
Is that to fit in?
I think so. I think kids just want to fit in, right? Yeah. You just want to be part of something. And for me, that was going to weekend footy games. And that was going to training with mum, twice a week and talking to dad at dinner about footy. And without that, I don't know what would have been my sense of belonging in that family. It's taken a long time to, like I said, emotional maturity of a 23-year-old. Like I didn't have a whole heap. And it took a lot of time for me to move on from that and to accept that, hey, my mum and dad were just doing the best they could. I think any parent's normally just doing the best they can. And having 3 young boys is bloody tough. And footy was an easy way to just get us together. Just an easy way to bring the family together. And yeah, I wish, it had been more open about if you don't want to play footy, Brandon, you don't have to play footy.
Did you feel the pressure that you had to?
From inside and outside, Tommy. I think inside from me wanting to be part of it, and from the expectations around my dad's footy career was a massive footy career, and his jerseys were all around the house growing up, which was something that I don't think if I had kids, I don't think I'd have the jerseys up in that way. I think I'd make it more of a space for everyone, but Dad had every right to be proud of his career for sure.
17 State of Origin games for New South Wales. I was looking at the stats before.
Yeah,
pretty impressive.
He won the Golden Boot, which is like a best player in the world one year. So he had a hell of a career. And, there's times where I was like, I wish Dad wouldn't talk about his career. But the older I get, the more I'm like, no, that was my dad's life. He had every right to be proud of it. And I'm proud of his career too. So it took some time for me to rekindle that relationship. And the past 2 years it's mended, and we're now, I FaceTime them once a week, which is something nice. And we text, and they came to my book launch in Sydney, which was a really big deal. I invited them along, and that was special. But, in those darker times, so when I wasn't communicating with them at the footy club, yeah, it was fucking lonely, Tommy. It was fucking lonely. I think Kieran was my support, but at the same time, Kieran was the captain of the club.
A lot of responsibility.
He had his own career.
Had his own life as well.
And I felt exactly right. And I felt when I would talk to him, I couldn't just be like, oh, fuck Horse for not picking me and stuff, because Kieran's in those meetings. So I do feel for how that would have been for him sitting in those match committee meetings, seeing my name thrown around, and Kieran's kind of got to sit there and it would hurt. I know it would hurt him, but kind of put being the brother to the side and got to be the captain at some point. So I knew that he had that going on. And that's why I think, you would have seen me, Tommy, I think you left in my 5th year. So my 3rd and 4th years at the Swans, I ended up just going out every weekend, every single weekend. Yeah. I was playing resis every weekend. So literally would just message any of the other 1st, 2nd year players who weren't close to getting a game. You knew they weren't injured, they weren't up for selection. They would be the ones who would come out. And I would just find a couple of those guys each year, and we'd go to Topo, World Bar, whatever. And that became my way of, now I realise it was my way of coping and dealing with it. One, because alcohol, it's a depressant, it numbs you for a bit. And for those few hours when I was just absolutely obliterated on the weekend, I kind of feel myself smiling a bit. I could feel happy, and it became just like self-medicating. And that's how I used alcohol for a long time. And just being out with people was nice. Just being out with guys and feeling like I wasn't alone was a big thing.
Feeling connected.
Yeah.
Not isolated. Do you look back now and think, as you mentioned, you were young. Everyone makes mistakes when they're young, but does it scare you a little bit that it was real self-destructive behaviour of going out to just get as obliterated as possible?
Yeah, and there's a real kicker here with me, Tommy, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I would always have to inject myself 5 times a day.
Yeah.
I have to check my blood sugar levels every time I eat food. Like it's a condition that like changes your life. And there is a real danger if you're a diabetic and you drink alcohol that, if people think I'm just passed out, well, I'm not actually just drunk. I'm having a hypoglycemic attack. And if people don't know that, then it's over. It's game over. So there were times where I would, I reckon I've been blackout drunk 2 or 3 times in my life where I can't remember what's happened. And that's scary to think about. And that's part of, I think, being a young bloke at a footy club, feeling indestructible, feeling like even though shit wasn't going my way, I still kind of felt like I could fucking do anything in a way. It is scary. And I don't fully allow myself to think about it too much, because if you do, then you're like, shit, I can cut it close a few times. There's been a journey post-footy of finding alternative ways to deal. And, you know, I'm quite open about, you know, I've been seeing a psych since I stopped playing footy. The AFLPA, you know, has a program where they will help ex-players, former players with that. And I've been seeing the same psych for a couple of years now. And before her, I saw another one. I do that once a month. It just keeps me on track. Taken antidepressants now for almost 2 years. And that was a big one. Taking antidepressants for me was, maybe I was waiting for someone to tell me I needed them, and it never happened. I don't know. It never happened. And then I just went into the GP one day because I was just feeling probably the lowest I've been in a while. And I said, hey, I've been seeing a psych. I'm feeling really down. Can we try antidepressants? And on the spot, they just do a quick questionnaire, and it was like, yep, we'll try these out. It might not work for you.
Yeah.
You might have to try out a few different ones. But for me, that was a big moment that I noticed the difference. The month you first start antidepressants are fucking hell. Like the month you first start taking those, the worst I've ever felt. And I knew that because people had told me about it. But eventually I started to notice that the lows weren't as low, and it felt like I used to just get in holes about things.
Yeah,
and things
so
now,
it can get you out of a hole and help you function.
Yeah, just stuff can bounce off you more easily. And I don't know if there's a stigma around antidepressants. I've got no stigma at all.
I love the fact that you're so open and have no shame in saying that, because I'm the exact same. And I had really bad anxiety early in my footy career, and have taken them since 2017.
Yeah, but see, I wouldn't have known that. I didn't know that about you, Tommy. And
I didn't know it about you either.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, we'll share after this. But even chatting to our club psych, and I've been at a couple of clubs, I think the stats say that roughly 10 players per club.
Really?
Yeah, roughly. It varies club to club, but there's a lot of guys that you wouldn't even know about. But I didn't really know what anxiety was when I was playing at Sydney. I just knew how I used to feel, and it wasn't until I got to Hawthorn that the doctor identified, hey, have you thought about this? And then I sort of got on top of my anxiety.
Because it's what's the thing? Like, a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water. It's like the most token thing ever. But yeah, I was producers laughing.
If the producer's laughing, you've done a good job.
I think it's a David Foster Wallace quote or something. But now I can recognize that my 5 years at the Swans were constant anxiety because and I know you've done a few pods with guys we played with as well. And I know there's similar experiences with other guys I've talked to from that era. Like, it was really intense.
Yeah.
And I think I have nothing to compare it to, not being at another AFL club. All I know is that I don't have that. At moments, I get that same anxiety from a book event or from a book launch or something, but it doesn't last. And when I do feel it, I recognize that that's how I did feel for so long.
It was a constant state of living. And don't get me wrong, we spoke before.
Yeah.
Our times at the Swans were awesome. Like we had the best life memories, great group of guys who still stay in touch today. We worked our absolute asses off, trained bloody hard, and had that real connection. And the club had some on-field success as well, like a really successful club. So and maybe we didn't have the tools to cope alongside a number of other guys just to how to deal with the pressure on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's hard you never want to come across as like a embittered ex-player. And I think for a couple of years I really despised the Swans, and it took me a while to get over that, and you accept that, I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew I wasn't good enough to be at the Swans for any longer. And I accepted that, but I still resented them. You still resent. If you lose a job anyway, you can't, or you get broken up with, you always kind of resent the other person. And that's how it felt like. It felt like a breakup with a footy club. But there was a thing at the Bloods culture, right? We always talk about the Bloods culture. The media loves talking about the Blood culture. And I get asked about it heaps. And there's something at the Swans. There's a certain work ethic that you can probably attest to, or training standards that might not beat other clubs. That culture created success for a certain amount of players. So for the team that was playing and the guys in those grand finals, that ruthlessness might have held them in good stead. But I think there's collateral damage almost in that. There's byproducts of that. And I'd put us both in the same boat. You played a few more games at the Swans than me and had more success there. But for large parts of our careers, we were like the byproducts of that. We were the offcuts, the resis who were, not in the team, were kind of thrown back and forth, almost the whipping boys at time, maybe deservedly so sometimes. I think we both did things as players which we could have fucking, which Horse didn't like.
Dino getting stepped by Surioli was... Dino getting stepped by Surioli and getting a spray in the shower post game, still one of my favourite stories.
Dino was probably the A1 whipping boy, I reckon. Yeah. But I do think that in a culture which breeds competitiveness and which focuses on getting the most out of everyone, not everyone can win. So there's going to be some losers. And when you are the loser, which is the guys who aren't getting picked and who come off second best, it does something different to you and it really hurts you. But is that the cost of success sometimes? You got to weigh these things up.
I feel like I've been on both sides of it. I feel like I've seen in my footy career now, I've been at that
You're
level.
You're a journeyman now, Tommy. You've been around.
I've been at the level where you do feel absolutely a part of it, and then you have the empathy for guys who are in that position. I remember 2023, we won the grand final, and on field, I don't know why. Maybe it has to be due to the experience I had previously, but for whatever reason, boys were celebrating, and not to pump myself up, but I remember grabbing all the Resi's guys who were sort of standing out there looking like spare dicks and pulled them in. There was about 10 of them and said, boys, I know exactly how you're feeling right now. This is a shit feeling. But I guess maybe that's a reason for it happening, to have that empathy to always check in on those guys and be like, hey, how you going? Like, this is tough.
And you can tell at footy clubs the guys who've been in that spot. And I think I've seen some Hawthorn guys say you did the same thing for them when you were there as well. You have a... if you know what it's like to be on the fringe, then you're aware of it. You look out for it.
If you don't know, you never know.
Yeah, you don't have the blinders up, but you know that so-and-so sitting in front of you is looking at the whiteboard for his name and is shattered when he's down the bottom. These things happen. And you know that when a certain player walks out of a coach's room after doing some vision that might not have been what they wanted to hear or see. And then you can be the kind of leader that wraps their arm around somebody. And I was, we're pumping ourselves up now. But post...
Your turn.
Post playing at the Swans, I captained the Resis at the Swans for the last 2 years, which is never something you want to do. You don't want to captain the Resis because it means you're always there, right? I think it was me and Nick Newman for a couple of years. But in my last year in particular, I made a real effort to be a people leader, to be a good bloke to the younger players like James Rose, Will Haywood, Jordan Dawson was there at the time, and still keep in touch with Dawson as a result, because I know I cared about him a lot and I cared about those guys. And that style of leader is who I would much rather be. And when I played local footy the past few years, played at UNSW, I'm slow now. I could never kick.
You were pretty fast back in the day. You're our fastest player. You're the fastest on the list.
I still can't kick, Tommy, but and the UNSW boys give it to me as well. I'm like, you're fucking local footy players. I played AFL. Don't fucking get into me about kicking, but they're right sometimes. But the greatest joy I got from being a leader at UNSW, and I captained them for a couple of years, was reading people on the team emotionally and knowing what a young 17, 18-year-old player needs to hear, what they're worried about, or if the coach has given them feedback, you go after and you put your arm around him and you say, hey, he's just trying to say this right. Doesn't mean this.
Which is hard to know as a young player. You read into every little thing you hear.
Yeah, it's or if I was quite vocal when I played local footy and always yelling at people to do certain things because I was too lazy to do them myself. So I'd be like, just go over there. And sometimes I'd be like, what are you doing, PJ? But then you go over and you say, hey, I'm just doing that because we're on the field and you've got to use your voice. Like I'm not angry, I'm just instructing you. And building those relationships was really nice. And as well, I was dealing with a lot of kids who were 19, had been in the Swans Academy, for example, not got drafted, and now they're like, what am I doing with my life? And I'd seen that before, experienced that before. So on-field leadership, you can kind of help them out with that a bit.
No, it's really cool that you can use your experience to do those things. I played a lot of AFL this year as I returned from a long layoff and played 7 games and had the exact same approach. And it is quite rewarding when you can build those relationships and actually help and give back a little bit.
Did you kind of enjoy playing Resis a bit? Like, you obviously want to be playing in front of 80,000 people, but there's something...
I enjoyed the return of getting back to play footy because I love playing footy and I missed it.
Yeah.
After a period of time, you get a feeling of, I don't want to be here. I don't feel like I belong here. I want to be trying to push to continue my dream of playing AFL, but there are benefits. You can have a serious impact on younger players, guys who have been in those fringe positions to help them. So I did still like it. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
We touched on as well, so using alcohol as an outlet, which I think a lot of young men do out there. And I think all footy cultures, whether it's local footy, elite level footy, all levels seem to have that association with alcohol that brings people together, whether that's normal or not, I'm not sure. It probably isn't. But the Swans didn't have a drug culture at all. That was not a thing at all. It was all just the guys would get together and have a drink. But we are going to talk about your book, Pissants, which is I've just finished reading. Awesome read.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, good plug, good first plug. But you are quite similar to the antidepressants topic, very open about your experience with other issues like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to drugs, I get asked if an AFL player gets caught with, and it's always cocaine. It's fucking always cocaine. It's never ketamine or MDMA or something. It's like a footy player has cocaine on them. I have a running joke that the next morning my phone just goes off from like radio stations who want me to talk because I've written about it a couple of times. And radio stations love to put together conflicting perspectives together, and you always get the people who are like, drugs are bad, don't do drugs. And I come from the side of being, well, let's be realistic here. This is a young bloke and I've been in footy clubs, I've been outside of footy clubs. Drugs are, in my mind, equally prevalent in both, probably more prevalent outside footy clubs. Local footy clubs, probably even more so than the AFL. So I've seen various circumstances where it happens, and I just never think you get anywhere from saying don't do drugs.
Yeah, denying it.
Because I grew up in a family that was like, don't do drugs, went to school, like, don't do drugs. And it's kind of, I don't know, I have done, drugs, dabbled when I was playing footy, not much. And then that was more of just an interest thing. And then post-footy, fair bit more. But it's something that, whereas alcohol, I think sometimes I can veer off and lose control over a bit, and it does become a real crux for me. Drugs is not something of that same level. And I just think that any conversation that goes to don't do it just robs or deprives younger people who might want to have that conversation and might be given an opportunity to then make an informed decision, that kind of information, right? And the other aspect I come at it from is it almost feels like this gotcha trap from the AFL media, which, I have a weird relationship with the footy media. Sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I fucking hate it, but it feels like they're just kind of waiting for a player to get done sometimes. And then as a result, we can then do the whole cycle of like player gets done, player apologizes, player sits out for a few weeks, player returns. It's like, I don't think anyone actually cares about that player's well-being in the media. Like, they don't. It's not their job to care about them, but they condemn them and then they write the next piece and they move on, they write the next piece. And I've been on the, back to my family stuff, Tommy, when my family was, I was going through my estrangement with my mum and dad, was written about by the AFL media, and that fucking blew it up, and that made it 10 times fucking worse. It made it so much fucking worse for my parents' well-being, for my well-being. That situation got blown up how it did without the level of understanding about what was going on. And that does damage. Like, that does a fucking lot of damage.
So what's the answer to that? Because do you see that, their argument would be, we're doing our job, we're reporting.
Exactly.
But is it just having an awareness of the damage that these things can do prior to actually committing to following through with it?
So I've been in newsrooms, Tommy, I've done some journalism stuff, and I know that an editor might just say, hey, go out, follow this lead, and the journo then goes out and does their job, and they have to kind of park their personal feelings to the side sometimes. And
a bit of a shit thing to do, knowing that you're going to have a bad impact on people, I think.
Which is why I've never gone into it, which is why I just don't feel right about it. And then I know that the headline, for example, then gets written by a sub-editor who probably didn't write the piece, but then just does the most clickbaity part of it. And I always hated submitting my op-eds to the paper because I knew that they'd pull out some line that would be not what I really meant, but what gets clicks. What does it take to fix that? I don't know, some fucking editor, publication to have some gall and say, you know what, we're not going to stand for that. We know that whatever, that might get clicks online, but we're going to actually prioritize meaningful media. And to be honest, the way that the AFL, the way that professional sports media is going, it is becoming more in the hands of the players. You doing this podcast, for example, Tommy, players doing their own podcasts, the mainstream media should be shitting themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because players have access and the opportunity to do these things and tell stories their way. So I'm not going to go talk to the fucking journalist who's going to swipe me, who's written about my family without considering me.
That's the biggest thing for current players, and I can speak on behalf of a lot of them, is exactly that. Having things taken out of context, and it happens far too often.
Yeah, and there's a mainstream media, newspapers are struggling right now. They are fucking struggling, and they are searching for ways to claw back. And I know a lot of writers who've lost jobs and editors and who I've worked with who've lost jobs. There's cuts going on, and that almost enhances sometimes these shit stories because they're just like, we need clicks, and the public doesn't care half the time. It just gets a reaction online, but the public doesn't care. You read the comments and people are like, who's this? Why is this here? It's just not good news, not good journalism.
Yeah. We've gone on a few tangents, but we need to talk about the book. We need to talk about the book.
Is that why I'm here?
No, tangents are good because we're covering all topics, which is what we're here to do.
Yeah.
But you've got such an intelligent being, like you're such a smart guy, and clearly having written 2 books, 28 was your first book you wrote, followed by Pissants, which sort of encompasses these conversations we're having around living life on the fringe, dealing with it in certain ways. So talk to us about the purpose of the book, how it came about, why you wrote it.
So Pissants is my first novel, so first foray into fiction. And to be honest, I wrote 28 4 years ago, and that was a memoir. And when 28 came out, I never really felt like an author because I just written my own story, and I didn't feel like I'd created anything original. And I really struggled with that for a while. So I kept writing as soon as that came out and wanted the next book out straight away. I'm like, I've got manuscripts, I've got to finish them. And within the next 2 years after that, I wrote 2 manuscripts to completion. One was about 90,000 words, 70 to 90,000 words, both of them. And they were just shit. They weren't good because I was rushing to get something done. And I sent them to my publisher, and they were kind of like, these are a bit underdone, Brandon. We're not interested in these. We think you've got another book in you, but not this. Then one day I was sitting at home. I remember really clearly. I was sitting at home, and I heard the first line of the book come to me of Pissants, and it was Fangs. Fangs, who's like the main narrator of the book, says something like, I can't see Mud's eyes through the mask, but I can tell from here he's shitting it. And sometimes as a writer, you just hear a voice, and you just like, that's like, you get this real excited feeling like, that's it. That's the thing I've been looking for. And from there, like that chapter came together really quickly. And then over the next 3 to 6 months, I wrote Pissants as it is pretty much now. It was edited, we removed a few things, but the way it is released is very similar to that first draft. But within 3 to 6 months, I just spent every day searching for that little excitement that would come, the certain voice. It might be Fangs, it might be Stick, it might be one of the other characters in the book, it might be a Facebook event I'm writing. Like, it became really fun to wait for that to happen every day. And it's, it's bloody hard work writing a book though, because you have to...
Like, how long does writing a book take?
So if you include the searching for ideas, so I was searching for the idea for 2 years before Pissants came, but once you commit to the idea, every writer's different, but for me it was usually between 3 to 6 months to get that first draft done because there's an energy and excitement to getting it done, which means I believe in it.
Yeah.
And I think that gets transferred to the reader. If the writer is energized by what they're writing, I think the reader can tell as well, and the reader gets that. Then there's the whole editing process, which, takes about anywhere from 1 to 2 years is the editing process. And that is, I had 2 editors working with me very closely on Pissants. And you do like a structural edit, which is where you go in and you just discuss, is it too long? Should we change some big things about it? It's big picture thinking. With Pissants, we went in and we were just like, let's cut these 6 chapters. And that's what we did, which I was quite lucky. It was very easy. And then you do another 2 rounds of editing, at least 2 rounds, where they go over every sentence, every word, cut stuff out, rearrange it, send you questions. And you get, by the end of it, Tom, you're sick of your own manuscript. By the end of it, you're just like, I've read this thing so many times, I think it's shit now.
Yeah.
And that is a very common experience for authors. I think you end up hating what you've done at some point. So you just kind of need to let go of it. Yeah. But all in all, Pissants was from start to finish 2 years, I'd say. And that's, I'm happy with that work rate and the speediness.
Do you work on the outside of this? Because that would take a lot of time, and it's clearly a hobby and a passion and something you're very good at. But do you need to work on the outside to make a living for yourself? And hopefully this book sells really well, and you said you'll know in 6 months to a year whether that's the case. But that's obviously a passion and a dream, but you still have to work behind the scenes to live, really.
I mean, Australian book market in general is not massive. And I think there's probably a handful of authors who can live off just what they make from their books, but they'd probably have to still do some writing courses and lecture at unis and stuff. I mean, I'd love to get to that point where, my books sustain me enough or whatever comes from the books, adaptations or anything like that, I can live off that. But now I have a job where I work for the New South Wales government. I write their websites. Like, I write the words of like how to get your driver's license.
I do. You're that guy.
I'm that guy. Yeah. So if you don't know how you get your license, don't blame me. But to me, it's a mind-numbing job, Tommy. It's boring, to be honest, but I love that side of it. I love that that's not my passion. My passion is my books that I want to write, and the job supplements me to do that. And I think any creative who goes into the whole tortured artist thing, like I will starve for my art and I will devote my life to just this artistic cause of mine, I think it's doing a disservice. I think you need to, realistically, we live in a world where you need to pay rent, you need to buy food, do all those sorts of things. If you're relying on your work, of your art, your books being sold to do that, you'll change them in a way that sells. You'll do something to get them to sell. It won't be as true to you. So I like that I don't rely on the books to make me the money, that I can do them as the passion.
Yeah.
They can remain true to what they are.
Yeah.
Because Pissants, of course I hope it sells. You don't write a book for it to not sell, but it's not a very easy commercial pitch to give to a publisher. You say, hey, so this is a book about a group of young footy players who like drink their own piss sometimes and like do some just awful stuff. Do you want to publish this? Like, they're going to be like, what are you fucking talking about, mate?
Is this guy all right?
Yeah. But yeah, I was lucky, I actually did have a publisher who let me write that book. So I got real lucky.
What do you want people to hear when they read Pissants? Or what? Obviously, it's done something for you to help you digest your footy career and everything it was and your learnings in life moving forward. But what do you want people to see and hear?
Yeah, this is it's a really good question, because the thing that will always come up, the thing that comes up with my writing at the moment is people always want to analyze it as a comment on young men, as on masculinity and manhood. And yeah, it is very much that. And I know that those are the messages people will take. But the way it's done and the way I wrote it, I wasn't really thinking about that too much. I was writing characters that I knew, and that it's their emotional journey that tells the story. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to commit to writing characters who I cared about and who were funny at times and who were quite lonely at times. And everything that's gone on in my life then means that those characters can produce that message for people to read. I think to analyze it, you have to sit and analyze your own books sometimes. Pissants is about a group of young men at its core who really lack the tools and means to really communicate to each other and to really be vulnerable with each other. And the way they then do that without those tools is to engage in these behaviors that a lot of society will condemn. If a footy player does something stupid on Mad Monday, then it gets condemned. Or if a footy player goes out and has a big night and does drugs, dumb footy players doing dumb footy player things. This book, in a way, contextualizes that to be like, spend more time with it than just the headline or the thing. Spend time with these characters and realize that, they might do bad things. Some of them might be actually bad people, but some of them and most of them have an actual softness in them. That they're just looking for the same connection everyone else is.
That's coming from a place of pain almost.
Yeah.
Or connection.
And we were, Tommy, we're the same age. I think maybe you're older, but the same age. We were raised.
I think I'm a bit older. Producer laughing again.
What's at the age?
Wait, we're doing something right. Producers had 2 laughs today.
No, but we were raised that a certain way of being at a footy club and being a certain way of a man was got you places. It got you access to a social circle and a hierarchy to footy club if you drank or if you talked about women a certain way, and we were raised like that. At some point in the past 10 years, that changed and the rug was pulled, and it's like it's no longer okay to be that. And I completely agree. Like the reasons that no longer needs to happen is hurts you, hurts the people around you, especially fucking women cop it from this. What I come from with my writing is when that rug is pulled from that group, that falling that happens then. So it's not just like you immediately stop drinking and being a dickhead sometimes and talking about these things the way you do. It's unrealistic to think that people will do that. There is a process of reckoning with the old masculinity and the new masculinity that I think this book does without trying to do it too hard. I think that's what it does. And these players, if you take away their ways of bonding, then they're kind of just left sitting in a room not saying anything and they don't know what to do. And I hope that people read it and go, okay, these kinds of people make a bit more sense to me now. Yeah.
That's cool. Really good summary. Where can people buy the book? I've just finished it. I actually flew through it. I'm not a big reader, I must say, but yeah, I really did like the book. I've read both of your books now.
Thanks, Tom.
Where can people buy them?
I think
what's plans next as well? Because I know you're always on this journey of what's next.
I mean, for me, the big thing with buying books is if you can, go to like your local bookstore and buy it from there. I think most local bookstores should be stocking it. If they're not, then just ask them to order it in.
I always love the smell of bookstores when I walk in. Something therapeutic about it.
Yeah, they are nice. I love a good book. So I've been to a few when I've been down here. It's what you do when you're on a book tour. You go to every bookstore and, can I sign this book? And then you walk out. Yeah. That wasn't even, I'm not even the author.
Yeah. Oh, who's that guy?
No, if you can support your local bookstore, because it is a tough time for booksellers. And I think it's really important that, we continue to give them our money, because then they'll still exist and more books will be written. Otherwise, online, Booktopia, maybe not Amazon because fuck Jeff Bezos or whatever, but go to Booktopia. And what's next? Yeah, maybe you're like this as well, Tommy. I find it really hard to not be thinking about what's next all the time. I think it's maybe to play professional footy, you need that drive constantly. And if I'm sitting around twiddling my thumbs, I'm feeling I'm not doing enough. So again, before Pissants was even out, I made a good start in the next book, which is just, not related to football is my hope for the next book. I got asked at an event last night, can you write about things other than football? And I was like, oh yeah, I think so.
Probably time to try.
It's just been like,
but it's all you know. It's all you've known from your childhood to your professional career till now.
Write what you know. That's like the adage of writing is write what you know. And I just happen to know football so well. And yeah, there's great stories there. So I think the next book though will be non-sports related, because I feel like for now I've kind of said my piece on sports through the books and through other things I've written and said. So another book. And yeah, Tommy, I'm just
grinding.
Just grinding, man. Just grinding.
Writing more driver's license
Writing
blurbs.
how to get your driver's license, making sure people know the road rules, stuff like that.
So good. What is your favorite story from within the book? Is there one that really connects with you? Because I know there's elements of the book which have truth, elements which have more fiction, and you write about, I'm sure there's a bit of mayo and stories here and there and things like that. But which story in particular, to give the audience an insight, really connects with you and had a real impact on you?
Yeah. Oh, there's a couple. There's I'll speak briefly about you're writing fiction, but with elements of reality. Like, of course, you're a writer. You mine your life for stories. You take little things that might have happened and then you blow them out of proportion and then you make the worst possible thing that could happen, because that's what a good story is sometimes. Or I take a certain trait I remember from somebody and then that becomes part of a character, but then I take things from other people and mix them with that character. So there's mishmashes and Frankensteins of people and stories in there for sure. And there will be blokes we play with who read it and go like, wait, that's something I said one day. I saw that happen. It's like, well, no shit. Like that's how fictional book is written. Every writer just rips off their own life. The fun thing with fiction though is, you can take it away from reality. So you can then expand on it. For me, I mean, the stories I really enjoyed writing were like when the group, we used to eat Thai food a lot, Tommy.
Wednesday night Thai food.
Wednesday night Blanky, we used to do that. God, they were funny times. But the group does that because I think that would be quite common for a footy group to go and eat Thai food on a Wednesday night. And the core group of Pissants, they're on Instagram at dinner and they see one of their teammates has made an Instagram account for their dog. And they seeing that are like, so sick of this bloke and his dog. Like, and one of them goes, well, what if we go kidnap the dog? And then that idea then goes like...
Just to confirm, that didn't happen.
No, that never... I was going to say, I'm not saying...
I was going to say, I don't remember being at Thai food and stealing a dog, but let's go with it.
I kind of... It's funny because I don't want to confirm or deny things that happen because I want people to think everything could either be true or not true. I want people to read it and be like, wait, could a footy player have done this?
Yeah.
Look, all I'll say is on several occasions, I might have sat around and somebody was like, what would happen if we kidnapped a dog? And I was like, oh, I don't know. We played it out in our heads. Anyway.
It's probably something the boys would have done, like maybe taking the dog for an hour to play a prank and then return it.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, the characters in the book go to the guy's house and one of the players climbs up onto his balcony and kidnaps a dog. And then there's the 5 footy players in the back of the car with the little dog in there as well, kind of yapping around. And then they go to the club and have an ice bath and a shower because they're real professional. And they leave a ransom note on the dog to send to the player. They want to pretend like the dog's been taken ransom. And then things go really south. I'm not going to say what happens, but then, sadly for the dog, it goes really bad for that dog. And the players are then involved in some kind of disposal mission and they have to kind of hide the evidence in a way. So it's fun to write unhinged, cracked stories like that. Another chapter I really enjoy was called What Is Said versus What Is Meant. And that is an interview between a player and a journalist where the page is kind of split in half. And on the left-hand side of the page, you get the words that they're actually saying.
Yes.
You know those interviews. It's like...
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's really hot for spots at the moment. And I'm just, when I get my chance, I'm going to crack in and give it everything I can.
The 1 week at a time analogies.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side,
straight bat.
you get the player saying that. But on the right-hand side, you get what they're actually thinking.
Which, like you said, around player-driven media these days, hopefully these platforms allow players to say what they're actually thinking because a lot of the time you're scared of what's going to be taken out of context or you just think, I'm just going to play this safe because I can't get in trouble. But I find that a bit boring, to be honest. Like I think hopefully we can get to a place where players can voice how they really think. And I think conversations like this, you're obviously out of the game now. So
I'm free.
You're in a place where you can do and say whatever you want. But it is cool. And I think more players are able to express and hopefully they can continue to express without judgment.
Yeah, for sure. I watch the guys who come on here, Tommy, and I think you get the better stories from them. And I think the same with like when Dill Buckley was doing Dill Buckley's podcast as well. I think Dill kind of started it. Like you recognize that players are more open in this environment. And then also we realize that footy players aren't stupid idiots who just say the same 5 lines over and over. They're actually interesting people.
I find, like, I'll just say, like a post-game interview is the most boring thing ever. I can't watch them because I already know what they're going to say before they say it. It's just like any interview with a player on any footy show during the week. I honestly find it, I can't watch it because I know what they're going to say.
Yeah, it's painful. It's painful for me. So things like this are, that's why I love what you're doing. It's great.
Yeah.
And it gives us more stories and it gives the game more characters. And, maybe Pissants was me trying to be like, there are characters in the game. You just don't really see it half the time.
They're too scared to come out.
Yeah, those guys, the Pissants would be too scared.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't want them out in the public eye, man.
No. Or the WhatsApp group messages. We said we'd get a Mario Kart mention in, but on Wednesday night, Thai food night, it would also be big Mario Kart competitions. Just big little kids.
Yeah, that's the thing. We were just like, it was just a way to spend time with each other, Tommy. Like I loved those nights when, the group would come around. And I think we had a pretty core group, but there was a few guys that would come in and out here and there.
Played a lot of cards as well.
Played cards. We played a lot of FIFA. It was just, it wasn't always just drinking and stuff like that. There were nights like Wednesday night Blunky for like 2015, like kept me going.
Didn't miss. Yeah. Got you through the year.
It literally got me through the year. Cause even if I knew that on Thursday I was walking into, being told I was dropped, still for a couple of hours, and you blokes came around like,
and you had a good time together.
Had a good time. Yeah. And they are memories that they're what sticks with me from my footy career. I don't have many on-field memories that I cherish, but those things are what stick with me. And you hear blokes at the end of their career always say this, Tommy. It's like the thing I'll miss the most is the locker room with the guys. And
is that true for you?
Yeah, for sure, man. I couldn't tell you anything about being on the field and, of the 28 games I played, there's not much to boast about. But yeah, that's ultimately what we remember is connection, I think. It's connection and friends, and that sounds like a fucking Hallmark postcard or something right now, but it's true.
What are your other observations? I find that really interesting. Since you've left the game, what are your observations of footy as an industry and footy clubs at the elite level?
Actually, I'm fascinated by the shift that's happening at footy clubs at the moment, and I think you'd have more of an insight into this than me, Tommy. But from the outside, it seems like clubs are loosening up. More individualism is coming through in players, and the social media thing's a really big part of that. Clubs are fully on board with social media now. And when we were at the Swans, like social media was this thing like you just didn't really touch.
Well, you got judged by the boys.
Yeah.
Even speaking up in meetings, you'd be scared to speak up.
Yeah.
Through fear of being wrong or ridiculed, where there has been a huge shift.
Maybe it's a generational shift as well. I think Pissants to me is kind of a farewell to that era of footy clubs.
Yeah.
I think
no,
that,
it is. It has changed.
That real tall poppy syndrome stuff where if you put a photo up of yourself, everyone comments on it. Now it's like guys are running businesses online. Like you can subscribe to their training programs and stuff, you know, like ball magnets. Great.
Yeah.
Sweet plug.
Thanks, man.
But, you know, I think I still struggle with that stuff a bit. I still struggle promoting myself because I feel like someone's going to cut me down and be like, why are you doing this, mate?
Yeah.
It's something that really is deeply within me. And that's, I think, our generation very much. Younger generation, I think, just maybe grew up with a sense of it's okay to just post whatever you want and who cares. Yeah, I think that's happening and it does seem more fun. It seemed like we're getting characters again in the game.
Yeah.
It was like, I know in the 80s and stuff, we had a lot of characters and I think everyone became shit scared of social media and really just tightened up. But now I think we're having a bit more, you know, we're getting more colour, which is nice.
I think you nailed it before. I think you can genuinely see that in players on field. You can see guys that are having fun. You can see guys that are anxious, and you can see where they sit in the pecking order of the team. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I've used this analogy. I told you this on the phone. I'll say it here because it's a good analogy, I think. The coaching thing's changed as well, right? I think we're seeing a lot more. So I would describe the 2000s and 2010s coaching era as very angry dad. There's a lot of angry dad coaches who you would just be kind of scared of, intimidating figures.
Slap you over the wrist.
Yeah, exactly right. You'd walk past their office kind of trying to hide. But now I think we have the fun uncle. So it's gone from angry dad to fun uncle. And like Fly McRae seems like a fun uncle kind of coach. Yeah. Kingsley as well. These are guys that seem like they allow players to express themselves and they realize that you often get more from players by doing that. And it doesn't seem so life and death about the little things anymore. So that tied into the social media stuff makes sense.
Yeah, it takes the edge off for sure. And I think you still get the same messaging through. It's just you feel more onside, I think.
No one means to miss a kick. Like no one ever means to like stuff up on the field. So I don't get baked about it, but it has its time and place maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, it has shifted for sure. Yeah. What about just some life advice? A lot of young males. You're
me.
How old are you now? 31. 31. You're younger than me.
Come on.
Some life advice. So you touched on at the start of this pod how you struggled to feel where you fitted in with your family and where you belong. What's your advice for people out there who feel like that and feel like they don't belong in something, and how do you overcome that? Because your brother, like you mentioned, Sydney Swan's superstar, captain of the club, your dad, all-time great rugby player, state of origin player, best player in the world.
Yeah.
And you probably felt that pressure. I have to be a footballer, you know, not up to their standard. I don't fit in. How do you deal with that, and how do you give advice to someone to overcome that in their own situation?
Yeah, I think when you're young, it's hard to escape that feeling. I don't think you'll ever. I think we always just want to belong and want to impress our parents or our family. I think the main thing I would tell, like, I wish a younger version of myself was told, like, it's okay to go and explore other things. Like, you're not letting anyone down by going and trying to write a book, or you're not letting anyone down by joining chess club or something like that. Like, have the freedom to know that the people in your life, the right people in your life will still love you no matter what you choose to do and who you choose to be. And that is something that is often hard to communicate. I think, you know, men to each other as well, we really struggle to tell each other how we feel and that we care about each other and that we love each other. But, you know, it's okay to go and explore something, or to not be who you think you're meant to be.
Because for you, that was writing. That was your passion and something you were really good at that you probably sheltered away because you had to be this footy player.
Yeah, for sure. Any artistic, writing, music, I would always enjoy them, really enjoyed them.
I remember you played a lot of guitar too.
Yeah, I went through a music phase, but we won't talk about that. Writing's more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't think that I ever felt like I could explore those. I just felt they were fun things to do off to the side.
Not masculine?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I definitely had that idea of soft is female, hard is male, and soft is the arts and hard is sport. And having done both now, like I've had careers in both, there's a fuckload of similarities between writing and sport and art and sport. And it's funny, I go to any book event now and all the people at the book world want to talk about is footy.
Yeah.
They just want to sit down and chat footy. And I didn't realize that, a lot of writers, a lot of artists love footy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can love both those things.
Yeah, that's really good. Is there any more bits of wisdom you want to share before we close off? You're full of wisdom and you've learned so much on your journey, and this book release is going really well. You're doing a tour of the country, currently promoting it, but is there anything, I want to give you the floor. You're under the mic. Is there anything
I don't,
you want to leave anyone with that you think is really important?
Tommy, you've been a great host. You've asked really fantastic questions. So I think I've got everything I need to say. Maybe I'll end with like some footy advice that it's technically your advice. Because Tommy, I remember when you had that, I'll boast you again here. Remember when you had that 64 disposal game? I reckon I watched that game. I reckon I would sneak up to the Swans upstairs, our computer room, and I watched that game because I was like, how the fuck do you have 64 touches? I would get like 19. I was like, how do you get 64 touches in a game? And I would sit there, and this is going to make you fucking go red or whatever, but I would sit there watching it and writing down how you got every touch. And I think the main thing I learned from watching you, and I've passed this advice on to some UNSW players over the years. I was like, guys, if you want to get the footy, just go stand in the short 45s and put your hands like that.
Yeah.
That is how you get the footy. Because I would just like run around and like, give me the ball. But you, Tommy, would be like, give me the footy. And I was like, and he fucking gets the ball.
You got to demand it.
So, young kids out there who play footy who are listening to this, go do that heaps. And you'll get, Errol Goulden does it as well. I always say
He
to people.
does. I can picture him doing it.
Yeah, so
if you want it, you got to demand it.
Yeah, so
That's
there
true.
we go. Yeah, maybe that's a life lesson.
Did you play
here.
that game in Canberra?
Yeah, I think I had like 19 touches and was stoked with that. And I think that's when Zav Richards got best on because he had 6 touches and kept his man to 1 goal and
played his role. Oh, that's very funny. Great memories.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll catch up with a few of the boys in years to come and discuss more. But BJ, thanks so much for coming on. Loved your story. Loved the book as well. So for everyone out there, Pissants, have a read.
Thanks, Tommy.